minute early. Minute earlier ain't gonna break the bank. All right. Good afternoon for a change, folks. Not good evening. We're going to be doing this live stream early, not only because it is my lunch break and I actually have quite a bit to talk about that's not going to make it into a full video because there's just too much to encompass right now, but on top of that, I also have things going on later today, and that's going to prevent me from doing a secondary live stream to supplement whatever video I make at this time. So we're just going to go live now, get it out of the way, get you some really important updates as of 12Z today. So, excuse me, I don't know what just happened there. I guess the energy drink I've been sipping on is brewing in my stomach and bubbling up. Good afternoon, Nomad Cat 4. Hello there, Devil Charger. Ethan's Life, thanks for joining even though you're in school. Nerd Guru, welcome in. I saw the precip totals. I don't have any words to say. Now, precip totals are definitely going to go back and forth. The main thing I want to discuss right now is the fact that our Euro and our GFS models, especially with the 12Z update, are right on top of one another. Very good news. Well, not necessarily very good news, but it's very good consistency in terms of our model data. So right here on the chart in front of me, already kicking things off. On the right-hand side, this is going to be our 0Z chart right here, and then this is going to be our 12Z chart, or our 12Z forecast. That's going to be the difference. And if you look at 0Z last night when we were all asleep and the model was loading in around 1 a.m. in the morning, we had 1,001 millibar moving, or 1,001 millibar low forecasted to move into southern Florida, the extreme southwestern tip of the Florida Peninsula, and drag itself through, maybe exiting somewhere around the Vero Beach, Boca Raton area, Boynton Beach area of Florida. With that being said, if this happens, or if this were to unfold, one of these two solutions, notice how our main precip core would more than likely be a south and southeast Florida style event, with much of the northern peninsula being spared, maybe seeing some winds and some rain shower activity with this system. If you look over at 12Z, however, now we have a 998 low continuing to strengthen as it approaches the Tampa-St. Pete area. Big difference, and notice the difference between our 12Z and our 0Z models in terms of our precip swath. The entirety of the Florida Peninsula, as well as the Panhandle, is now forecast to see showers and rainstorms with this, whereas we had a tighter concentration and a weaker system at 0Z. Now we have more of a widespread heavy rain swath with this, which also means because it's a stronger system, this is likely to bring us some stronger winds not only along the coast, but into interior parts of Florida as well. If you go a couple more panels in, notice how as we see this system move in, it'll be at, or I shouldn't say it will be. It's, we've seen this big change. There could still be some adjustments made before game time this weekend, but now we have a 995 millibar low making landfall somewhere to the north of Clearwater, Tampa, St. Pete, which is going to help to really bring in a lot of the more stronger activity to central Florida and the northern portions of Florida into the Big Bend area as well. Whereas South Florida now in this case is only going to see so much of it. At least during its initial approach, we could see some heavier rainfall, but the core, especially on this panel right here, it does an excellent job of highlighting the huge change with this new model update. So if you look here, faster system already exiting by 12Z Sunday morning. This would be about, I want to say 11 o'clock, 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, 12Z. And then out here on the latest iteration, now we're looking at 12Z on Sunday in the morning. Our worst weather is still over top the peninsula as opposed to wrapping up. Two very distinct differences. Smaller precip core here, larger precip core with this system according to 12Z. And this ebbs and flows very, very well with what our GFS model is showing. And so with that being said, this is the difference now. So I didn't pull up the side-by-side comparison because I figured you guys would kind of know the difference and you could kind of put the pieces together in your mind. But take a look at this now. This is where we sit at 850 millibars. And the reason I bring this up is because now we have a really good southerly component over much of the peninsula with a more easterly component over the second upper half of the peninsula, with winds screaming at 850 millibars between 58 and 64 knots, right in through this general area where I have my pen drawing the legend here on the right-hand side. This changes things mainly because, granted, we're definitely going to have strong winds with this down at the surface, sustained winds at that, 30, 40, maybe even 50 miles an hour in some areas as you get closer to the center of this storm, depending on if it continues to deepen down past that 995, 994 millibar threshold, as highlighted by some of our other models. But this is greatly going to increase the chance that we're going to see a tornado watch blanket the state more than likely if this solution holds true. Because if you come over here now, huge fluctuations. So we'll go to 0Z real quick and I'll show you the difference. So this is going to be our surface buoyancy. And as you track this through, notice how the southern tip of Florida sees most of our surface cape. And even there, all we see maximum is maybe 750 to 1,000 over the Keys, and then near Fort Lauderdale, Miami-Dade County, and then further off to the south-southwest tip of the Florida Peninsula, where maybe squeaking into the 500 millibar, 500 joules per kilogram range. If you come over to 12Z with that change in its trajectory and where that low-level warm sector sets up, look at that big difference. So now we have a very substantial channel of good surface buoyancy and instability streaming through much of the state almost all together, capping itself near Tallahassee and Jacksonville all the way to the north, where now we have that peak threshold of about the 500 joules per kilogram range up towards the Jacksonville coastline, kind of getting close to the Florida-Georgia state line, as a matter of fact, and this nice pocket close to the center, as well as just off the coastline of the southeast portion of the peninsula, over that 1,000 joules per kilogram level of cape. So that's not good. This is definitely going to amplify just how much possible severe weather we see with it. And this, because of this change in track, if you use it on this chart specifically, this is where your center is more than likely going to be, with most of our rotating action going on in through here. Probably going to be where we see some of our more substantial thunderstorm activity. This ebbs and flows now really well with what GFS at 12Z is predicting. And this might be a little hard for you guys to see, but this is our 12Z GFS, very close. Very close. They're almost neck and neck at this point, the Euro and the GFS. GFS just a little bit further to the north, kind of in the same general area where Idalia made landfall, in the Big Bend area near, what was it, Perry, Florida, very close to that general area, whereas the Euro has it maybe just a little further to the south. This is where GFS is thinking. Euro is thinking right here, somewhere in the same general realm of intensity, though. If I click the next 6 hours, notice how as the low tracks ashore, it's at 995 millibars. Very close. So our models are neck and neck at this point, and I think we're going to continue to see this consistency refined as we go over the next 2 to 3 days before it's showtime as we roll into Friday and then Saturday. Also, if you look at the ML Cape, I know we skip over. You have that 6-hour gap right here, but notice how we have a stream of anywhere between 800 to 1,600 joules per kilogram of mixed layer cape or mean layer cape. And as that comes across the state, notice how that stream remains very consistent as it moves over the Gulf Stream and off the eastern coast, especially right in through here. This is going to be anywhere between 12 to 1,800 joules per kilogram of ML Cape. Definitely not good. Definitely not good. And if you look at the wind barbs, we still have that steering, or I should say that shear component of rotation as you ascend each level of the atmosphere. I'll break it down for you guys once again. So the white wind barb is going to be at 10 meters, so basically surface winds. The yellow is going to be your 850, and then your green is the 500 millibar level. And I'll go ahead and draw it off to the left-hand side here so you guys can see it. Most of our 10-meter winds are showing them like this out of the south, 850 like this, and then at 500 looking at due westerly. So as you see, as you go up through the atmosphere, you're shifting. You're going clockwise. So there's spin in the way our vertical wind shear is stacked. So I don't understand. You guys, if you don't have me on Instagram, you missed a wonderful rant this morning. I was pissed because there are still a lot of sources out there that are discounting what's likely to happen in Florida. There's a lot of people out there still saying, rainmaker for Florida, severe weather for the Northeast. I don't know why. A lot of our models actually keep this away from the Northeast. I'll go back to the European model and I'll show you real quick. So let me go ahead and X this out, clear the ink. We'll go to Euro, we'll go to United States, we'll just use the whole AOI, and then we'll go to mean sea level pressure and precip. And as you track this through, notice it really gets going in the Gulf of Mexico now. It deepens down pretty substantially, and then notice how it stays away from the Northeast. I mean, there's a system that breaks off from it. It's like a triple point low, rapidly accelerates up the eastern seaboard, but for the most part, we're just getting another nor'easter up there where we could see some snowfall and cold air pulled in from Quebec and Ontario, and most of the very, very heavy precip and wind action kind of stays off the coastline or right along the mid-Atlantic to the northeast coast. But what's very interesting is we have a system down there that just sort of lingers. You see it down there headed towards Bermuda, and then it kind of gets pushed back in the same general direction. So we could see lingering rain chances over the next couple of days after this breaks away, if this holds true. But I mean, look at how aggressive of a low that is moving across the state. Like that is pretty tremendous. It almost encompasses all of the Gulf of Mexico as it gets going, and then begins to interact with that very weak baroclinic system that comes off of the Texas coastline and immediately gets absorbed in with it. So yeah, we're definitely going to have to keep an eye out. We're definitely going to have to continue to watch this day by day and hour by hour. Let's go to the satellite imagery. We'll go down to the Western Atlantic, and we'll see what's taking shape down there, because I've been hearing a lot of talk that there's already something trying to form up. Yeah, I mean, it looks kind of impressive. That's a lot of rainfall, but first and foremost, a lot of it is offshore. And second of all, this really isn't going to be what our main event actually is. This is just residual weather associated with the frontal or the trail end of the front that's still back up in through here. And that's the very tail end of it getting buffeted by our subtropical jet, our El Nino jet, as we'll call it. So this isn't exactly what's going to take shape. It's going to kind of fizzle out, at least anticipated by most of our models. This is going to end up dying out once this flare-up is complete. And then once it finally works its way into the Gulf of Mexico, that's when we're going to start to see it really undergo that deepening. We're going to have interaction brought in from our polar front jet and some shortwave advection from the PFJ also kind of combining with it, and that's really what's going to help to kick things off. There was something else I wanted to show you, and I completely forgot. Oh, yeah, here we go. So let's go to the only reason I'm bringing this up is because if you look, there is still a small area of very, very warm water out there. And the only reason I mention this is not for the sake of tropical or subtropical. The only reason I bring this up is because that warmer water is going to help to intensify some of the thunderstorm activity we see closer to its center. So it might try to look a little bit more like a subtropical storm closest to its core, as opposed to just the overall system being a very broad and rainy low. It could actually have a core of consolidated convection if it deepens down pretty quickly. That's the only reason I bring this up. Overall, the water temperatures are not extremely impressive for the Gulf. The Caribbean is still unbelievably hot, and I definitely do not think this is going to go down. We're almost halfway through December, and we're still sitting there well into the realm of we could support tropical cyclone activity. So definitely want to watch this for sure. And I do agree, National Hurricane Center should probably highlight it just a little bit. I'm definitely waiting for SPC to highlight it, more so than National Hurricane Center. See, I would definitely go for a subtropical style event, that's for sure. The only thing I noticed about some people is they're highlighting that stuff down here in the Caribbean as a full-fledged named system, as it's going to be a full-fledged subtropical storm. I don't know if that's actually going to be the case. I don't think it'll actually take on full subtropical characteristics. It'll definitely have some really good subtropical thunderstorm activity with it, which is why I do think we really need to start amping up our preventative measures and monitoring for a possible tornado event here in Florida. But I don't know if it's going to go all the way to named storm. You know, it's going to be close. If we continue to see these intensification or this level of intensification with run to run, because if we go back in time, we'll go to the Euro, we'll go to 0Z yesterday. And you take this through time and you look down there in the Gulf and nothing really forms at all. We don't really get a closed center of circulation with it. It is a very, very, very broad low. Very disorganized, you know, nothing too much with it. You go to 12 Zulu for yesterday. Let me switch. You go to 12 Zulu yesterday, kind of the same thing, a little bit more of a consolidated center, and then once it gets over the Gulf Stream, it really bombs out and then blows up as it heads toward the northeast. And then at 0Z, we back off once again. 0Z looking a little weaker, and then once again, as it gets up the mid-Atlantic coastline, it really forms up into something strong. And then at 12 Zulu, now we're starting to see a bit more of a consolidated singular center, deepening quicker before it hits West Florida. So if we continue to see these trends with the models detecting something stronger, we could go full-fledged subtropical storm. But remember, this this is going to be primarily an El Nino style event. That's another reason why I went on my very long-winded rant earlier this morning on Instagram, because there were so many folks who were giving their preliminary winter forecasts back during the hurricane season in August, September, and October, mentioning how this is likely to set up and start taking shape for the winter season. And now that it's happening, we're calling it all these different things. It's been very weird. Everyone's been saying that this is a rare setup. This is not something that happens. This is a very weird situation, and it's really not. This is exactly what was supposed to happen and exactly what we were predicting earlier this year with the El Nino setting up. If you guys tuned in for my live stream yesterday, remember I mentioned that we have our polar front digging in like so, and that we have our subtropical jet going full zonal west to east. So any kind of leftover energy in this general source region is going to have more than enough momentum and more than enough energy above it and down below it to really fire up and move over the southeast, this general quadrant of the United States. Only reason it seems weird and the only reason it seems rare and unique is because we haven't seen it just yet. Like a lot of other folks have been saying, El Nino hasn't fired off anything major, but this is essentially going to be a repeat of what happened back in October for Florida, which is what has me concerned. We had a very similar setup with a less organized low pressure. This one's going to be a lot more organized and could have some of those tropical-style thunderstorms in its center. So we really need to pay close attention to this. I'm worrying about Southeast and Florida specifically before I start worrying about the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. I don't know why everyone is brushing over the Southeast and going straight to the Northeast. It's got to go through us first, and we'll get an idea of exactly what's going to happen. If we head over to our ensembles, the ensembles look very interesting as well. We'll go to the Gulf of Mexico. These are our 12Z ensembles, and you can see the Euro is definitely starting to pick up on something very strong, brewing just off our west coast. If you look, the general consensus is on Sunday morning, we're going to have a low spinning up somewhere off the west and the northwest coast of Florida, and some of these ensembles are definitely getting there. They're definitely getting there. This member right here is definitely down into the 980s, approaching the 970s. This member here, same story. This one's trying to get it going. This one's trying to get it going. This one's definitely trying to get it going. So like I mentioned a little bit ago in the live stream, guys, if we continue to see this intensification trend, this could definitely be one of the more nastiest storm systems, or one of the nastier storm systems we've seen, particularly in our neck of the woods this entire season. I wish that, let me see, maybe it's 247. Perhaps we will actually have our actual ensembles available for 12 Zulu. Let's see. Sometimes these are a little latent. Yeah, no, they haven't even started populating yet. What a shame. That's a bummer. I was hoping that that was there. Yeah, we don't have any of our tropical models either, which is a bummer. So, yeah. Definitely stuff we want to watch out for. Here's our GFS ensembles. Here's for Florida. We'll go to mean sea level pressure. And if you notice, even the GFS is thinking we're going to have something pretty good coming right over the state. I mean, some of these models or some of these ensemble members think it's going to get really strong once it's done moving over the state of Florida, but general consensus is whatever this might take shape into is going to hit us first, buffet us with whatever it has to offer before continuing up the eastern seaboard. Could we possibly have rapid intensification? No, I don't think so. I mean, technically, this would be considered a form of rapid intensification, but rapid intensification is more thoroughly utilized for tropical systems. This would be more or less some weak bombogenesis. And I don't think it's going to deepen that rapidly. I do think it's very, very favorable that we could see a low pressure form up and it deepen 10 to 12, maybe even 15 millibars, depending on how long it takes to get to the Florida coastline. And usually when we start stamping lows, you're sitting somewhere between 1,006 to 1,010 millibars. So if you see it drop down 10 to 12 millibars, it's going to put us into the low 990s, which is that's definitely comparable to a moderate, if not greater, tropical storm hitting the state. Let's see what the I saw your comment, Brian. Let's see what the KMA is thinking. Haven't really looked at this in a while, not going to lie. 12Z is all the way in. So yeah, KMA is right on track with the European model. 100% on track. In fact, has a much tighter concentrated low center, as a matter of fact, too. Let me see what the millibar, the central pressure, looks like with it. Oh, yeah, look at that. Right on track with what the Euro and the GFS are thinking. 993 millibar, same general landfall point as the Euro right now. So, I mean, you do a comparison, and that's going to be a very, very hefty wind event because of such strong high pressure just off the chart here. Look at that pressure gradient force. You have 993 millibars, and then just within the first 100 miles of it, you're already changing over 10 millibars. So that's going to be a very good 35, 40 knot surface wind tunnel around this system. So gale force warnings are more than likely, if not most definitely, going to go out with this if we don't get any kind of subtropical identification with it. Lots of coastal warnings, lots of coastal advisories, good beach erosion. We're going to have maybe some coastal flooding with this as well. We're definitely going to have inland flooding regardless of what shakes out with this, just because of how much rainfall is going to be coming at us. And I do believe we're going to need to watch closely for our tornado threat. Because, I mean, you look at 850, and it looks even worse on the Korean model. The Korean model is picking up on the same general trajectory. Look at this southerly component, due south right there, and then east right there. So this is going to be your impact zone, or your most dangerous zone, more than likely, where you're going to have your rotating storms. So it's definitely game time for us here in Florida. We're going to have to kind of more or less prep for this. Not fully prepare like it's for a hurricane, but definitely something we need to keep our eyes open for and constantly be alert of exactly what changes as we go throughout the next several days. I want to see what the UK model is thinking with this as well now that we're close enough. Dang, 12Z is still coming in, so we'll use 0Z. All right, so the UK model is thinking it's going to miss Florida entirely. I don't know about that one. The UK model misses us all together, moves to the Bahamas, and then escapes out into Bermuda. I don't know about that. Whoa, excuse me. I really wish we had our high-res models already. I really wish we had high-res models to look at, but we don't as of yet. We do have our WPC model here. Thinking big time rain event for most of the state. Here down is where we're likely to see 2 inches plus. Any further to the south of that line, and we're just getting into flood territory for sure. 2 inches and more as you continue down to the south. I wish this model had other features with it as opposed to just hourly precip. Let's see, maybe we can get another model that'll look out far enough. NDFD, does this have us far enough out? No, it doesn't look like it. Still not close enough in time, unfortunately, to see anything on our high-res model data, which is such a shame. We could definitely use that right about now. This only goes out 60 hours. See, I'm curious to see what the next couple of days look like, because if you look down in the Gulf, you already have something brewing on this FV3 model, and I used this a lot when that last no-name system blew through. Same thing with our NCEP NAM. The NCEP NAM did a pretty phenomenal job. It's not going to go out far enough. Let's see. Oh, we might get close. Yeah, so there's something starting to form up out there in the Gulf of Mexico. This is our surface winds, and I'm already seeing winds up to 50 knots. What about our precipitable water? Precipitable water is doing, let's see. Yeah, precipitable water is already growing. So we're almost there. We're almost there to where we can start seeing things with our more substantial models. Just going to quickly sweep through all of these. See if we can get any better of a resemblance or a semblance of what's happening down there. Nope, nothing just yet with this. Yeah, so we're still a little ways away, unfortunately. Let's see what our EPS are thinking. Our ensembles with the EPS control mean sea level pressure for the Euro. Let's see what the control member is thinking. So yeah, control member is thinking somewhere right around like low 990s control ensemble for the Euro. This is their greatest likely or most likely outcome with all the Euro members put together. It's always nice to look at this stuff. Let's see. What about the... Is this popping up just yet? Nope. Come on. I'm hoping that before we end the live stream, we can get our ensembles from the European model so we can see specifically. Nope. Still not coming in. Still not coming in. Dang, what a bummer. All right. I guess we'll close out the stream because I got to get back to work here in a moment. We'll look at our GFS ensembles instead. Go down all the way to the bottom. Cyclone locations, GEFS, Gulf of Mexico. And there you have it. Lots of really good agreement that something's going to move towards the Tampa area as a sub-1,000 millibar low between 980 and 999. So, in summary, we've seen some pretty substantial changes with the European model. So if you guys are watching this live stream after everything's all said and done, I know this was a bit more abbreviated than what we typically do in the evening. I wanted to more so casually communicate the updates that I've been seeing with the model data. Biggest change is going to be that track difference with the Euro. So the Euro is now on board with what the GFS is thinking, with a bit more of a northward push with this system, either hitting Tampa or just to the north of Tampa. And that's going to change our dynamics very largely, if that's even a word. It's going to dramatically adjust exactly what we see, not only for the south, but interior Florida and North Florida. And I think that's why SPC has been on the fence about highlighting it, because there's been a lot of wiggling back and forth between, is it going to actually hit enough of the state to bring that warm air and that buoyancy and that instability up enough through the peninsula to see some severe weather action, or is it going to stay further to the south? Because if this system were to take a much more southerly track, kind of like what the UK model was thinking, if we saw it brush the Keys, go through the Bahamas, then in reality, we might see some action in the very southeastern tip of Florida, but the rest of the state is just going to get, inconvenient rain showers with it and maybe some winds. It's really not going to be much if it moves to the south. If we change the game and have it come in like this, then this entire area is going to be under the gun for some severe weather activity, because we have that low-level jet, all of that moisture feed and warm air advection from the Caribbean and all those hot waters down to the south. Those hot waters down over the Caribbean are what's helping to keep the weather warm and the weather tropical down there. And with that conveyor belt activating with the system tracking up this way, and I'll even draw it, I'll diagram it for you. Let's say we have a low spinning right in through here, like so. This is going to be our pressure gradient around the system. And if you look, notice that as that system rotates around, we're tapping into cold air up here. And then down here, we have our warm air. So you have your conveyor belt now tapped in. It's going to surge up that way, and then out this way, we're going to have our cold air getting pulled down. And it's that interaction that SPC is waiting for right over the state to see whether or not they're going to highlight it. And if that track holds true and we see it move up to the north, we're going to have a lot more of that warm conveyor and that low-level jet active, or I should say activate, and cut across the peninsula and interact with that cold funnel that's coming in, that cold conveyor belt off of the southern plains and the Gulf of Mexico coastline. So now it's, once again, we have the updates. We're now back in a holding pattern. Now we have to see as we get closer to showtime. It's the 12th. We got about 48 more hours. By Thursday night, we'll have a really good idea of what's going to happen, and we can really nail down our forecasts. By Thursday evening, or I should say Thursday afternoon, when we get all of our 12Z data for Thursday, that's when I think we can really start to lock in exactly what sort of phenomena, what sort of localized impacts we're going to see. If it's full-time chase mode, if we're going storm chasing, we're going to have tornadic activity. Hellacious severe weather will have intensity and track definitely nailed down. So I'm thinking Thursday afternoon around this same time, we'll definitely have a more concise level of agreement for what's going to happen, and hopefully something highlighted on Storm Prediction Center as well. Right now, within the next couple of days through tonight and into tomorrow night, with our 0 and 12 updates that we have through Wednesday and into Thursday, we could still see some wiggling and wobbling and some intensity changes, but by the time we're 24 to 48 hours away from the big, game show, the halftime event, that's when we'll be able to kind of figure out and sit down like, okay, I'm seeing this, this definitely makes sense, it's likely to track this way, and then we'll also have all of our high-res data to dig into. So with that being said, guys, we have an advertisement that's getting ready to run any moment now. Drop me a comment in the comment section of this video, or perhaps drop me a line on Instagram or TikTok, WX_Nazario. I have to get back to work. I have about 60 seconds left before I need to clock back in. So we're going to go ahead and end the stream now. I would like to get back in touch with you later today, if not tomorrow, with another live stream and another video discussing exactly what else we could see happen. But until next time, guys, I'm going to try to end the stream before the ad. This is Weather Center Nazario, signing out.